Is this today's
Yes, I
agenda?
have, yeah, on yours, I should. We're live now.
Okay, awesome.
But we're getting like feedback.
Are we getting,
If you just mute the volume on your computer.
What are we doing?
are you listening on YouTube or was that the Zoom?
This is Zoom.
Okay, great. Well, we are going to get started. I see. I just wanted a note to the committee members. Several of you have bills in money committees, Senator Clarkson, Senator Vyhovsky, and I have another one. So just keep an eye out for those two. Good afternoon, everyone. Today is March 22nd. Wednesday, and this is the Senate Government Operations Committee. And today is Art Day in the Senate Government Operations Committee. I'm very excited, and we're going to talk about the art in the State House and the art in here in our room. And we have with us our state curator, David Sheets. And David, we were interested in talking to you about an update on the work that you guys have been doing about the state interpretive plan for the artwork in the State House, and wondered if you could give us an update of where you're at and your vision for that.
I would love to. Thank you, Senator. Sure. And I'm thrilled as well to be here with Caleb and with Kate as we celebrate just this room. And let me take the opportunity to say to you that I've been here for nearly 40 years. And in that time, I am quite confident that we have never had committee rooms blooming with so much art.
Never.
In part because, like you, Senator, whenever new committee chairs suggested that they weren't particularly pleased with what was already on the walls and they would like something else, I turned it around and suggested that they look to the artists in their districts. And that happened in 5 different committees in this building where they really took it. We certainly helped get them up on the walls, but you arranged for the art to be here. And that is typical of what I think we want in the State House in general, which is to keep the building as open as possible to it being the gathering place that it is. At the heart of the interpretive plan that is, I'm happy to say, completely drafted and in design right now. It's in the hands of a graphic designer who is putting photographs, maps, charts together along with several appendices that are going to be attached to it. There are even some MOUs. We're not sure that the MOUs necessarily will come attached as well, but MOUs with different organizations that we are relying upon to enliven the State House, since we are, after all, just a 2.5 person office, and therefore unable to possibly hold our own with the ambitions that are expressed in this plan. It is an ambitious plan, and it's partly ambitious because of what you and I, Ruth, went through how many years ago when you first came and first expressed interest, and the work that the task force did for a number of years before we got into the pandemic. Then during the pandemic, the bills that you introduced and passed here at the State House, I think all of this has brought about what I can only say as I'm looking possibly to the final year or so in my tenure as state curator. It's so ambitious that I have become even more passionate about my work than I ever was. And I can say that in my almost 40 years here, I have never lacked passion. That is not, in fact, it's probably the most common thing that anyone ever says to me about my work. They don't care what the work is, particularly sometimes, but they can't but notice that I've always been passionate about the work. So what that work is now is identifying what the State House is, again, with fresh eyes in the 21st century. We know what the State House was, and we know what the State House was as recently as, say, 5 or 6 years ago. But envisioning what the State House can be is what this exercise has been about. And I'm getting emotional because the process has allowed me to think about my pending retirement in a totally new way, which is the only way that anyone would ever be able to get me out of here. And that is that if we worked feverishly, and when I say we, I'm talking about the members, I'm talking about the staff, I'm talking about the committee, the Legislative Advisory Committee in particular, but also the institutions, committees in both bodies. If we do our work the way I hope it will play out in the next year or so that I am still here, my hope is that the State House will be far more accessible, far more open and welcoming to all parts of Vermont and all Vermonters, no matter who they are, and that we will know what to do with every type of visitor. So the exercise of making an interpretive plan starts with audiences, identifying who they are and what those audiences need to have a full appreciation of building and what it's all about. And some of those audiences are here for downtowns, sheriffs, all kinds of issues that are bringing them to do the people's work in concert with their representatives. It's that audience in particular, the casual audience, the audience that has not made a decision to come here because it's an old State House, but rather because it is the State House. That's where we catch people and have an opportunity to bring them to a fuller realization of what democracy is all about. And at the heart of our interpretive plan is democracy. And I have to confess, as a person older than most of you, that I never in a million years when I was young thought we would be at a point in our story, meaning the national story, where I would doubt that our democratic institutions weren't fully capable of leading us through every challenge that we are met with. And yet, as I think many of you would agree, this time is also the reason I am passionate and that I am scared and that I am hoping for better in this building at least, and that we could maybe go on to make Vermont what I think many of you believe, a beacon to the rest of the nation and to lead us through this challenging time so that we all begin to do a better job of educating our youth as well as all others about what we hold dear and need so badly in this, to simply govern ourselves. So with that in mind, with that in mind, one of the products that my office participated in this past year was to work with Jim Condos on this publication, Freedom and Unity, a graphic guide to civics and democracy in Vermont.
We all have.
It started with town meeting, which is not something that a lot of kids experience directly, particularly kids in Montpelier or some of the larger communities that don't have the stereotypical Vermont town meeting. But direct democracy and representative democracy are both fully explained in this publication. And what we're challenged with doing now in the building is to make sure that all tours for school groups, which are the largest audience for schools anywhere in the state, get what they need here at the State House to learn what history is, to learn what government is, to learn what art is. And art, just to get back to the central focus of today, art is the vehicle, frankly, for engaging the audience. If you can, let's look at all kinds of the cartoonists at the Center for Cartoon Studies in White River Junction, incredibly gifted, and that's why this works.
Yes.
But I'm sure you've seen many publications that have attempted to explain America's governance to young people, and you lose the audience if there's too much text, if there's too much that they can't handle. Well, the same thing happens with exhibits, and what often works the best is art that pulls people in visually and allows them to appreciate something that they would never understand any other way. So bringing more contemporary art into the State House is one of our plans in the plan.
Okay.
Rooms 9, 10, and 11. If we ever get past the pandemic reassignment of those spaces, would become galleries for art, contemporary art, and rotate shows through the State House with our active partners. So that's just a glimpse of what the future holds.
Excellent.
And I want to thank you for your own passion on this subject.
I am nothing if not passionate.
And I'll close by saying that for quite a long time, we've had an art gallery over in the Supreme Court. And currently, I need you all, before March is over, March 31st would be the last day that this show is in that gallery. And
we missed the opening.
Kate is a good friend of this artist, Tammy Davis, longtime professor of art at the University of Vermont. She has just retired. She's actually on a sabbatical right now, but then she retires from a long career at UVM. And her paintings over in the Supreme Court right now, which are gigantic, they rival Kate Gridley for scale.
They're bigger.
They're even bigger.
They're even
And
bigger.
they are all about the environment and climate change. So this is art that is inspired by yet another major social issue of our time. And you need to go over and see what these paintings do for you, because I think they will impress you no end. And that's exactly what we hope to bring into the State House as well.
That is really great. First of all, well, thank you for that, David, and
Sure.
for your here on your comments about democracy and the state of our country. do you have a version of the plan that you could send to us?
Not yet.
Okay.
I really want to wait for the graphic design.
Okay.
But it will be available in early April.
Early April.
Early
We
April.
will have
We're-
you back
Yeah,
to give us an update and
Totally.
take us through. the
then I
plan.
can take you through the plan.
Yeah, and
for
for
sure.
the new senators at the table, Senator Clarkson and I have been working on this for years now, trying to get a change in the artwork that hangs in the halls of the State House and in the rooms of the State House. We've worked with David and really want to see much more diverse, not only diverse faces in the artwork, but also diverse media and timelines, you know, sort of historical moments. There's so much that has happened in our state that is not represented on these walls. There's so many people that are not represented on these walls, and that really needs to change. And that's one of the reasons why I was very adamant. First thing the committee will knows, I was like, okay, we're changing the art in here, and to get these amazing pieces of work on our wall. It's just really incredible. Thank you so much for your help getting them
My
up here
pleasure.
and working with artists so that we could have them, and for putting up the
I will give
The
my seat.
interpretation.
yeah, the interpretation.
I will give my seat over to one of them.
Yes, do you want to go? It does, so Kate, would you?
I'll go first if you want.
Yeah.
Did you write down your remarks?
Oh, yeah, I have a prepared statement.
I did not.
Kate, you're testifying.
No. Am I testifying? Okay,
So-
that's news as of Monday. Okay.
Well, thanks again, David,
Thank
and
you.
welcome Kate Gridley. So I will give a little introduction and let you introduce yourself, and we'll all introduce ourselves to all of you. I'm sorry we didn't do that first, David. I was a little off my.
He knows
before
all
coming
of
in
us.
here. You know us, yeah. Kate is one of my constituents and friends, and I've known her for years. We've worked on several things together. She's always been my arts consultant throughout all of the work that we've tried to do here. She's read my bills. She's testified on all the artwork stuff that Senator Clarkson and I have done. It's just been, I've learned a lot from you, and really just an honor to have your artwork behind me. And every time we are on YouTube, you can see the work in the room.
Yes.
And you can see up there on the screen. It looks beautiful for the audience that's watching us on YouTube. You can see both your work and Caleb's work. So it's really just really fun. So we'll introduce ourselves, and then I'll turn it over to you to talk to us about these paintings and your work more in general. So as you know, I'm Ruth Hardy, Senator from the Addison District.
Senator Tanya Bielowski, Chittenden Central.
Senator Rebecca White from the Windsor County District.
Bob Norris, Franklin County.
Ann Watson, Washington District.
Allison Clarkson, Windsor County District.
Thank you. And do you want to introduce yourself, Eric?
Eric Bilcorn, BGS. I just came down to make sure that the curator breathed at some point.
He didn't faint, so that's
And I'm Kate Gridley, and I am from Middlebury, Vermont, before that Manhattan, but I've been in Vermont since 1991. And I've done a lot of work with David over the years. And Ruth, I want to thank you for inviting my work into your space. I testified a couple of years ago about the faces that we don't see on the walls of this building. And so when David, you had me choked up when you were describing your plan and your passion, because when you talk about how art engages people, it's not simply an engagement. I think of anybody who comes in here, and in particular, I think of children. Do they see themselves on the wall? And they might not. They might not. They might be differently abled. They might be, well, they might have a different gender than the majority of the work that's on the wall, you know, a different age, different color, all kinds of things. To be welcomed in a building is also to feel safe. It means to be seen. It means to be heard. When I embarked on making the cycle of paintings that Maddie and EJ are part of, they're part of a group of 17 paintings. And the work was premiered at the Southern Vermont Art Center back in 2014. And then it went on tour all over the country. But the reason I made the pieces was they belong to a group of young people who are between the ages of 18 and 25, emerging adults. My children happen to be in that cohort as well. And for a long time, I wasn't going to paint them, but I ended up including them because many of their friends or people they knew were traipsing through the house to be in these paintings. So I wanted to make paintings that were authentically them. So I asked them to choose their clothes. And I said, I want these to be clothes that your friends would see on you and say, oh yeah, they're in that comfy shirt that they love to wear. That I said, don't dress up for me. Don't put on a pose. Put on the clothes that are you, yourself. Similarly, as we created the portraits together, because a portrait is a collaborative effort, really. I almost always say it is a record of the time I spent with the person, irrespective of the fact that frequently I will work from photographic material because they can't give me 100 hours to sit and model. So there'll be photographic material, but the time I'm with them enables me to interpret the photographic material that I have. Ruth, behind you is a catalog, and I meant to bring it up here, which I'm going to give to you guys to have somewhere in a library or
So
buried in a
lovely, thank you.
file. When I made this catalog that is about the show, I didn't simply include images of their portraits. I also included images from their photo shoots.
Oh, smart.
Oh,
Because if there were hundreds of photographs, you know, we all look different at different times and moments. And so the truth that we created in the painted portrait really is, it's a whole lot of things layered in there. It's not just layers of paint, it's layers of moments we spent together. Now, the thing that happened that I had not anticipated was, of course, when you're spending time with people, you talk and you learn stories about each other. And I realized that what I also wanted to do was to record their voices and to record the stories. And so there are sound portraits that accompany the painted portraits. And for the sound portraits, they also chose little snippets of music with which to dress their words in the same way they chose their clothes. If you go to my website, it has 4 sections. And the section that's called Passing Through Portraits of Emerging Adults, click on that, and all 17 paintings will be there. And if you click on a portrait, you will get their sound piece. They are between 2 and 3 minutes long. The music credits are there. If you had an hour and 10 minutes, you could listen to all 17 of them. You don't have to. But what you would find.
Oh, look at this.
Oh, aren't you good? What you would find is, there it is, Passing Through. That's the show up here. This is Southern Vermont Art Center where we opened it.
Oh, I see it.
And it gives a little one, that's at another school because it traveled all over the country. And it's still available. It's sitting in East Middlebury right now in humidified storage.
And it was in the Supreme
It
Court.
was in the Supreme Court
Gallery.
building. It's been out to Colorado. It's been all over New England.
Oh,
And generally what happens is, oh, that's pre-pandemic hair. What happens is when I exhibited in an educational institution, a lot of the teachers and professors use it as a springboard for discussions about identity.
Yeah.
And a lot of artwork has been done in response to this show, a lot of writing by young people, older people. It's been really interesting in that it appealed to all ages. A lot of grandparents went with their adolescent grandchildren, looked at the work together, compared notes, listened. So it became an interactive piece, which was very interesting. Now, all of the subjects have a connection to Vermont in one way or another. They were either born here. One young man goes back 8 generations on one side, 7 on another. Others passed through because they were at school and they were from an international country and they could not afford to go home during vacation. So they came to my house and bumped in with us. And so that's where there's some diversity of experience, why they're here. They're from multiple socioeconomic backgrounds and life experiences, again, which, you know, aspirationally, as we look at what could be available on the walls of the State House in terms of speaking to many different kinds of people, that was lurking in the background of my project as I was creating it. So we produced a catalog. In the catalog are also pull quotes from their portraits. This is really good reading. It's not, and I didn't edit it. What they wrote, what they had to say about how they saw themselves, how they saw the world, what they were interested in, where they thought they might go. The Vermont Folklife Center has archived all the states of the sound portraits. So it was a really interesting collaborative project on many levels. Do you guys have any questions about this particular piece?
Yeah, Senator
Yeah.
White.
Thank you. This has been extremely refreshing. Thank you so much for being with us today, both of you. It's been, I'm just mesmerized. I'm spellbound. So we haven't had the audio files yet. We've talked about having them available as like a QR code.
Yeah.
It's my failure to find my file. with
Oh,
QR codes.
no.
It's my fault.
I just feel like that would
You
be
can
so.
go on
Okay.
your cell phone
Yeah,
to the website and
Yeah.
access it that way.
Okay.
Just go to the
and if we
website.
had more time, we would listen to one.
Yeah.
So I'm a little worried that we're, not gonna
Don't
have
do it.
time,
It's
but-
better to go listen to it in your house.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's very interesting what happened with the oral portraits. I mean, I have photographs of people listening together and
Oh.
crying, and it's this idea of sound, word and vision. What happens in storytelling? And you know, that's how humans have connected forever. So how do you tell the story? What's the right amount of time? Because you can lose people too.
Yeah.
So what's the way to do that? And frankly, I had this old-fashioned training thinking about Renaissance painting techniques, but I live in the 21st century and I want to kind of marry all the possible media possibilities, you know, what happens when you mix it up. I'm doing a project right now on how we access memory. And I've hired Peter Hamlin to create an electronic soundscape. So we beta tested it last year in New Hampshire.
he's a professor of music.
He's an
That's very
electronic musician. Do you know him?
No.
Oh, but
She's your video arts though.
Oh, all right. So what happened is I've been painting these objects they trigger memories for me. I guarantee they'll do it for you too. And then he borrowed the objects and he rubbed them and he tapped them and he turned them into this very abstract set of sounds and pulses. And at one point he had musical chords in there and I was like, take those out. I'm thinking electronics. Our nervous system and how it is electronic. This has to be electronic. Subliminally, you're thinking impulses on a neuron. And he's like, oh, and so he created this soundscape and I've only painted a quarter of it. There are going to be about 200 little images in this thing and you're going to walk through it. So you'll experience it in time. And then this soundscape of his will happen. So it was up and a woman came in with her kindergartners. And they're all looking at these little tiny paintings. And one of them was heard to say, you know, those noises are helping me see better.
Oh. Couldn't have scripted it better.
Out of the mouth of babes. Yeah.
Well, that's really cool. And definitely, follow Kate on Instagram.
Oh, yeah,
See her
what's your handle?
paintings,
It's just Kate
her-
Ridley.
Yeah.
Good.
And,
Immediate follow.
So one other thing is a couple of years ago, during the pandemic, I've been painting tools, old tools. The tools that shape the land we live in. And a lot of the tools actually came from the Kent Museum's collection. And I had a set of paintings of these tools on exhibit there.
The Kent is a state-owned historic site that my office
Mhm.
enlivens every fall with art at the Kent in Calais.
And
So, and
it's
Kate-
a
Kate-
very interesting
Artist.
place.
You are.
So that'll be
No, no.
September, October,
I love
if you want to come out. Yeah.
And one last thing, if you're interested in looking at another piece of work by Kate in the building, she painted the portrait of Governor Douglas.
Right.
that
Oh,
you can find
that's
upstairs.
Our Middlebury guy.
Well, and right now I'm at work and then you were talking about huge paintings oh no, I was reading about this mysterious portrait of Donald Trump that's 8 feet high that has now disappeared. Yeah. I am making a painting right now in my studio of Francois Clemens.
Oh,
And
yeah.
it is 8 feet high by 6 feet wide, and I think it contains his largeness of personality
His
And-
largeness in all aspects.
in all aspects, but it
So
is
it's
going
life-size.
to be picked, it's over life size.
Just like he is. He is
Over
a
life size.
He is Francois
Not
Clemens, is
8 feet.
Officer Clemens from
Yeah.
Mr.
Mr.
Rogers.
Rogers.
That's the
He-
feet in the pool.
He
That's
also,
the assembly.
exactly, he lives in Middlebury.
And we'll be making a sound piece to go with that, because I have accompanied his singing on.
I was gonna say, I hope he sings them.
Oh, he will, so it will be a singing portrait, I think. So, but, it's what will engage, and for me, I am all about, trying to, as authentically as I can, witness, the people that are here. That's what, a lot of my work is about, not all of it. So it's the people.
Yeah,
Then
well,
we
that
have
is
the man
a
with
good
the lamb.
segue into
Yeah.
our next artist,
Yeah.
Caleb Penna. If you wanna-
Oh,
Thank
thank
you.
Thank you for letting me run along.
And,
Okay.
thank you. Great. Caleb, you wanna come on up to the,
Oh,
to
should
take the,
Yeah, come on up. It's the
Probably a little more.
friendly warm seat, not the hot seat.
Thank you for having me. Thank you, Senator Hardy.
You're welcome,
Everyone.
thank you. If you want to, just introduce yourself and tell us what you'd like us to know about your artwork.
Right.
Yeah.
So I have prepared like 15-minute
Sure.
slideshow.
Yeah.
I'll explain most everything. So
Wow, that
I just
sounds
gotta figure out the screen sharing.
You wanna just,
I'm just gonna, yeah.
It should be fine if you
Oh,
share your screen now
share the screen, yeah. Let me
and
just get
then
the
hit
screen.
share sound.
Yeah, and get the,
I'm happy to help with you.
thanks, yes, go share screen.
technical.
Yep.
There we go, that one. You guys are gonna
Sounds
go
Click share, yeah.
down here,
Share.
And then.
and then this should then
You wanna
start
do a play?
slide, baby start. So there's a 1-minute video and then there's a 15-minute slideshow that I
Okay.
talked over. So the first.
Did you do the sound part too?
Yeah. let's-
Okay.
Ever since I was a kid, I loved to fly in airplanes. Airplanes meant journeys of discovery, visions of new lands as I gazed out an oval window at an ever-changing view of the world. These days, I discover new visions in familiar landscapes. Instead of an airplane window, I fly above Vermont, looking for patterns on the land through the lens of a drone. Most every day, I try to get outside, launch my drone into the skies, and look to capture new views of the Green Mountain State. I love flying during the golden hours around sunrise and sunset as the landscape below awakens or prepares for the passing of another day. Drone photography provides a sense of soaring, freedom, and discovery, and reminds me of flying in airplanes, or more like a bird, looking down with fresh eyes on the landscape below. Ever since I was a kid, I've loved to fly in air.
Okay, thank you very much.
Yeah.
So that was made by Chris Spencer to promote my book here. So,
Chris has been around.
Yes, I mean, I don't think Tom is on it,
so I grew up in Brandon, Vermont, on a hill on a hill with views of the Green Mountains, the Taconic Range, and the Adirondacks, surrounded by seasons. I'll go back there. Seasons, light, and nature. Ever since I picked up my dad's old Nikon as a teen, photography has been my way of exploring the world. Ever since I was a kid, I've loved flying in airplanes, looking out their oval windows and the patterns of the earth below. Before drones, I would hire an airplane once or twice a year and hope for good weather and a friendly pilot. Now I set up my drone in 5 minutes and start flying. As Ralph Waldo Emerson wrote, the sky is the daily bread of the eyes. When I was starting out, Vermont Life set the bar of quality for Vermont photography. I pored over National Geographic magazines and dreamed of a globe-trotting photography career. My first job was for the Rutland Herald as independent. Because there wasn't much hard news in Vermont, we were often asked to find wild art, standalone photos showing moments in daily life. This often meant driving around looking for something to photograph, a farmer in a field, kids playing on a playground, or a fisherman on a summer morning. In many ways, I'm still on the lookout for wild art, except now it's from the air with a drone. These pictures are like a visual journal, a sketchbook from the air. A good photograph is knowing where to stand. Ansel Adams. Photography often comes down to where and when you take a picture. Small planes fly a few thousand feet high, so objects appear tiny. With a drone, you're flying anywhere from ground level up to 400 feet, allowing for greater intimacy and detail. Looking straight out into the Vermont Verde Antique Quarry in Rochester, the drone's view allows me to see the years of hard work spent cutting stone from deep under the Vermont hillsides. The soaring pilot makes an aerial excursion, not an incursion. His passage leaves a whisper, not a shriek. Richard Miller. At Rock of Ages in Graniteville, the E.L. Smith Quarry takes on monumental proportions and testifies to generations of hard work in Vermont's granite industry. Next. Going forward. Thank you. I love to drive over the Appalachian Gap to try out new aerial perspectives. Hairpin turns in the AppGap document V-Trans's dedication to making and maintaining Vermont's rugged roads. In all seasons. All. Even 6 seasons. In Heinsberg, a farmer cutting his fields creates an abstract pattern of agriculture. In summer, I get up before dawn and venture out. These morning hours provide calm at the start of the day. At Brandon Swamp, I line up composition, shadows, and light. Learning to canoe and make drone pictures is like tapping your head and rubbing your stomach at the same time. Takes practice. The first time I realized the potential for drone photography was when I was driving through Rupert in the Meadowy Valley and saw the roof of an old barn rising in a cornfield. Only once in the air was I able to look straight down and see the swirling rows of corn and detailed patterns of the barn's slate roof. It was a moment of aerial discovery, Without the drone, I would have missed the picture. From the air, I discovered the meandering path of Otter Creek in Mount Tabor, hidden just east of Route 7. I launched my canoe and explored by water. Only later did I realize how hard it is to launch and catch a drone by hand while paddling a canoe under a stiff wind. Water reflects the mood of the skies like the small pond at Buell Store on the App Gap. In Middlebury, tennis courts and a cemetery provide a visual contrast between the living and the departed. The drone captures the lines of an old Middlebury barn now gone. Pictures document specific times and places never to be repeated. What seems real one moment is fiction the next, and gone out of existence the moment after that. Nostalgia is the greatest enemy of truth, and change our only constancy. David Budbell. Whenever I'm driving around, I take note of certain landscapes, filing them away in memory to revisit in better light or a different season. There's nothing quite like the feeling of launching the drone into a sunrise sky, surrounded by birdsong, soaring ever upward, a balance of heightened awareness and excitement, and finding new pictures. At Wells River, I looked at my Vermont map and headed towards Tickle Naked Pond in Reigate. Who wouldn't want to go there on a foggy September morning? Often, I'll shoot a few video clips to save for a rainy day or maybe a slideshow at the State House. Although I love watching video and think it provides great atmosphere, it is the still image I'm most drawn to. Seen from above, objects take on new forms, a shadow light. The word photography literally means to paint with light. We are shaped by our thoughts, we become what we think. When the mind is pure, joy follows like a shadow that never leaves. Buddha. On sunny days, my favorite times of day are sunrise and sunset, the golden hours. At Happy Valley Orchard in Middlebury, apple boxes form a veritable shadow skyline in the snow. Sometimes friends like Alex at Middlebury invite me to collaborate on a cross-country skiing painting expedition. Who could resist? A pop-up rink in Middlebury and the skaters' long shadows. The Middlebury Town Pool at rest in the winter snow. Other times, shadows play a more dominant role than the objects themselves, like solar arrays at Middlebury College. One May morning, I photographed this tree at the UVM Morgan Horse Farm in Weybridge. Both character is like a tree and reputation like a shadow. The shadow is what we think of it. The tree is the real thing. Abraham Lincoln.
Oh, that's a good one.
I didn't write that. If you wait for the perfect assignment, it may never come. If you're not getting assignments, go within. Create your own assignment. The drone has helped me do this. This is what I've been doing in Vermont for the past 5-6 years. This cover, oops, sorry. This cover picture of the book came at the end of a routine real estate job in Shoreham. When I was finished, I noticed this long white fence and a row of trees and their incredible shadows, the mundane transformed. When the New York Times started the World Through a Lens series in 2020, I was drawn to its great design and ample space for photos and text devoted to one subject and one photographer. It was a breath of fresh air as we were all holding our breath during the pandemic. It took us on virtual journeys and reminded us to savor not only far-off lands, but also our own backyards. Thankfully, I had the email address for Phaedra Brown, the picture editor for the travel section, because she had given me assignments in the past. I submitted 60 of my Vermont drone photos. She selected 17 of them, all with a bird's eye view straight down, helping further distill the abstract look of Behold Vermont from Above, which was published in the summer of 2020. This led directly to Schiffer Publishing and the creation of my book, Art from Above Vermont. I'm often looking for subjects that might provide engaging aerial patterns, farm fields, railroad tracks, marinas, or in this case, the hops farm in Starksboro. For me, the camera is a sketchbook, an instrument of intuition and spontaneity. Henry Cartier-Bresson. Elliot Erwitt wrote, photography is an art of observation. It's about finding something interesting in an ordinary place. I found it has little to do with the things you see and everything to do with the way you see them. Hay bales and their shadows form a perfect line in the snow in Bridgeport. Boats wrapped for winter at Point Bay Marina in Charlotte look almost like a strange version of backgammon. Late one winter afternoon, I flew over the Lemon Fair River in Cornwall looking for a good composition in vain. Only when I came back to land did I see a large farm pump right next to me, glowing in the warm light like so many Cheerios clouding in milk. Another airborne exploration bearing a visual gift. It helps to know people like Josh Mack at Mack Steel in Rutland, where I took this picture of rusted brake motors. In this case, access is everything. In Burlington, trains look like kids' toys at the Vermont Railway's yard. Sometimes pictures are revelations, other times they are pre-imagined images. I got to photograph this hop farm in Starksboro, savoring the mesmerizing duration of the crop. More times than not, I'm drawn to the lines created by Vermont farmers who have cultivated the land for generations. Often, I don't know who created the patterns in the summer farm field, but I'm always grateful for the hard work behind Vermont's working landscape. Stacks of firewood. In Moncton created an orderly picture of hard work, value-added labor in time for the coming winter. I am often in search of color when looking for drone pictures. I listen closely to the weather forecast, alerts to shifts in temperature, cloudy weather, or high pressure. I got up before sunrise in June to photograph and hike in this remote area, ready for the view of Silver Lake and Lake Dunmore. Study nature, love nature, stay close to nature, it will never fail you. Frank Lloyd Wright. The camera is an excuse to be someplace you otherwise don't belong. It gives me both a point of connection and a separation. Susan Gonzalez. Above Anya, Middlebury, and Robin's turquoise pools of this massive limestone quarry, which provides calcium carbonate purification for absolute paint. I keep returning to places like Granville for a combination of classic Vermont buildings, winding Route 100, and mountainous landscape. Only after many visits would I fly low enough to spot this spectacular different everything spaceship in fresh snow and morning light. Even on gray winter days, I try to get out and look at the pictures. 2 school buses in Athens and when the pandemic started, we were all mostly locked out of our homes. In Vermont, we get so out of nature. At Goshen Dam one morning, I kept hoping fog would burn off for a better view of Sugar Hill Reservoir. But instead of going home, I pointed the drone straight down on my canoe, floating in the water. Now if it's cloudy, I don't mind. That's when I focus the drone straight down on a subject for a top-down bird's eye view. Colors pop on cloudy days. In Jeffersonville, the Vermont Land Trust has conserved Brewster uplands north of Mount Mansfield. During an assignment there, I photographed the farmers' fields that proposed making abstract patterns and vegetables making up food boxes for hungry Vermonters. In Shoreham, one May, 3 crabapple trees stand out amidst the sea of apple trees during the spring bloom. From a few dozen feet above Happy Valley Orchard, tree and fall becomes a visual metaphor. At Lake Hortonia, I paddle an orange kayak through a narrow channel surrounded by water lilies. After the sun sets, Middlebury's traffic circle becomes a pinwheel in a long twilight exposure. An island of green at Middlebury, orange, a cloudy day reveals peak foliage along Huff Road and Sudbury. Although sunrise is my favorite time of day for making pictures, twilight is a very close second. There is a time every day after sunset and before night where the light balances between light and dark, like here at the Addison County Field Days in New Haven. In White River Junction, a sunset sky sets off historic buildings of this old railroad town. In Sudbury, car lights glow in a long exposure. A drone can make an exposure up to 8 seconds. We're made for the light of a cave and for twilight. Twilight is the time we see best. When we dim the light down and the pupil opens, feeling comes out of the eyes like a touch. Then you can really feel color and experience it. James Turrell. In Middlebury, the flowing water of Otter Creek Falls blurs in contrast to the sharply focused buildings. Virginia's compact downtown glows in the dusk light. When I get a portrait assignment in Montpelier, I'm happy that it takes place at the end of the day, so I could squeeze in a twilight townscape. In Burlington, the Queen City glows in both winter and summer views, the wide-angle lens of the drone capturing the foreground and the background of city, lake, and mountains. At the end of the day, I return home to Middlebury, hoping for a still evening with plenty of afterglow from the setting sun. Making drone photos has become a meditation for me, a daily practice of waiting, seeing, and looking. You might call these pictures a visual journal, a daily sketchbook, a record of the Vermont seasons and landscape from above. Thank you very much.
Caleb, thank you so much.
Thank you.
That was really wonderful. And also follow Caleb on Instagram. That's actually how I started following you. And that the 2020 New York Times thing
Yeah.
I shared on one of my
Thank you.
constituent emails. It's
Great.
really, your work is fabulous. And it's especially meaningful to me because it's almost all in my Senate district.
Thank you. Gotta spread my branches.
Yeah, rules for even.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
So, thank you so much.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, our pleasure. Thank you for lending your work to the State House, both of you, and allowing us to enjoy it every day. And we get so many compliments from people who come in too, and stop walking by and go, oh, who is that? Where is that? You know, so it's really wonderful. Does anybody have questions for Kate or Caleb? Yeah.
Well, yeah, I'm mesmerized. You guys are amazing. So a question for you. I have a family connection to some really beautiful art that's in our downtown in White River Junction.
Oh, yeah.
And one of the interesting pieces about this art is it's my great uncle, and he took all of his photos during the 1950s.
I've seen them.
Yeah,
Amazing.
Collimer Abbott.
The black and white.
Yes.
They're amazing, yeah.
And the reason I bring it up is one of the things he always talked about was he didn't realize how the time period that he was taking the photographs would have such an impact on how they were looked at years later as he aged. So I'm wondering, because I did not have the opportunity to talk to him when he was in his prime of like taking those photos. I feel like we're meeting an artist in their prime. I don't want, what would you, it's hard to articulate, but what would you want someone to see about your photos in 50 years? Or in, when we're at a different place in time?
Well, it's certainly a lot about the environment and the importance of protecting the environment and the working landscape. Because I've traveled a lot outside of Vermont and been to a lot of places where the air is not as clean, and the soil and the water. So that's really important. But, of course, development, you want to develop, but, I also try to show not only the pretty Vermont, but also the real Vermont.
Yeah.
So.
Well, the developed,
Right.
perhaps.
Right. Exactly.
Develop.
Right. So the various sides of Vermont.
Yeah, the trains and AOT, that was really cool.
Right.
Yeah.
So thank you. Wow, okay.
Thanks.
Thank you. Any other questions?
No, very moving.
Yeah,
It was
thank
just,
you.
it's really lovely,
Thank you.
both of you. It's just really a treat to have you here and to talk about our art. I wish that was true for everything that we have up at the State House down. I want to know the stories behind every painting and every piece of work.
Maybe we can have more art here.
And we had
Turn around.
we had a wonderful theater piece about the portrait that's right outside our door.
Yeah.
The guy who was in jail.
Alexander Twilight?
No,
Oh, well,
no.
Matthew Lyon.
Matthew Lyon.
Matthew Lyon.
And we've had also a whole farmer's night on Alexander, the Alexander.
Yeah,
Trail.
that's what I thought.
Yeah.
So, and on Alexander Drive. So it's just, it's wonderful for us to have all the work illuminated
Okay.
so thoughtfully. So thank you.
Thanks,
all.
Ed.
Yeah,
Thank
thank
you.
you.
Ah,
And we're gonna take just, what?
can we do a photo?
Yeah, well, I was gonna say.